Hi everyone, welcome to the So Essential vlog. I'm Lucy and I'm here today to do the Q&A, yay! So thanks everybody who participated and left questions a few weeks ago when I asked you to. We had an overwhelming response and I'm really excited to start answering some of those questions for you today. As usual, I'm sure I'll mention things that are available on our website or our blog and you'll find the links to those below. And what I will say is, sorry if I don't get to answer your question today. There were just so many. I think I would be here for hours and hours if I went through them all. So what I've decided to do is just record a 15-minute video today, answer as many as I can, and then I'll come back to the others and I'll do subsequent Q&As for you, because it's a lovely thing to be able to do because it tailors it to you and what you really want to hear about. So it's quite an enjoyable activity for me, but hopefully for you as well. So I will come back to the other questions, so please don't despair if your question isn't featured today. I'll just do as many as I can for today. And also I just wanted to mention I've been on holiday. I had a couple of weeks off, which was fantastic. It was a much needed break, but I haven't been as responsive as normal with the comments on the previous videos from the last 3 weeks, and that's the reason why, because I've been away and yeah, just needed to have a bit of a break. But I'm back now and I'll be just as responsive as ever, and really look forward to hearing from you all today. And let's get started with the questions. I have got some notes because obviously I couldn't remember all of this, so you'll see me refer to those from time to time. So the first question from Becca Blonde was, what are your favourite features to use on a sewing machine? So there's definitely a few that are on my machine. I use a Husqvarna Designer Diamond machine, which is a discontinued sewing and embroidery machine from Husqvarna Viking. But these features do appear on a lot of their machines, from sort of the mid-range up, and we stock all of their machines. Our machine stock is a little bit depleted at the moment because of some of the issues surrounding COVID-19. There aren't as many on the website as there normally would be, but as soon as they're coming back into stock, we put them back on. But there's still a few on there, so you can find the link to our website below where you'll find those. But my favourite features on my machine are definitely the scissors. So you might not be aware of this, but on a lot of the computerised machines now, the sort of middle range up, there's a little button you press and that snips your threads for you. And before you use that feature, I think it sounds like some frivolity that you probably think, oh, why would I ever need that? But once you get used to it and not having to pull the fabric off the back and cut it on the cutter on the side, just pressing a little button and the threads are snipped, that is a really lovely feature. I also love needle up down, which is available on lots and lots of sewing machines these days, and what that allows you to do is choose whether the needle stops in the up position or the down position. And I use that all the time for things like sewing round corners, when I need to pivot. I find it really useful because I can stop sewing with the needle down and just check it's in the right position. And what also happens is the foot raises on my machine, so I can actually move the fabric round and just check the position and everything's going to be okay before I make that turn, which is really useful. And then one other feature that my machine has, and again this is a feature that you get on lots of the Husqvarna machines from a certain level up, is that I select the fabric type and then my machine automatically sets the tension to that type of fabric, and it also tells me what size needle to use and sets the stitch length as well. And that is a really fantastic feature because it means that even when I'm working with a wide variety of fabrics, which I tend to do, I haven't got to keep faffing around with tensions and things. So they are definitely my 3 favourite sewing machine features. Annabelle Carling asked, do I cut my patterns or trace them? And Sally Lyons also asked that question too. Now, I am definitely just get on with it and cut it out person. I've never traced a pattern in my life, so you might think that's a bit naughty perhaps, I don't know, but I think I suppose what one thing I should say is I have got, access to a never-ending supply of sewing patterns here in my family business. So I'm very lucky in that respect, and I suppose I don't have to worry quite so much in that respect if something goes a bit wrong. Having said that, I do not like wasting things. So, I'm not... I don't think I've ever really cut out a pattern and not used it. But I think also I've just got more confident over time with what fitting issues I have and what size I need to cut out and adjustments I need to make, so I just feel confident cutting into that pattern. So yeah, that's what I do, that's what I tend to do. And somebody said, yeah, the tissue patterns are quite flimsy. They are, but as long as you're careful and you look after them properly and you fold them up neatly and put them back in the packet, I've never had an issue. I always use them. If you do get a little tear on them, you can always use a bit of masking tape, or Scotch tape's really good, easy to peel off and reapply if you need to just make any repairs to those pattern pieces. But generally I get on fine with them, so yes, I've always done that. Alison Kirk asked, how do I decide what size to make? And also Jackie Friedman asked about choosing pattern size, and she said, do you choose the size represented by your body measurements or the one for the finished garment measurements? So what I tend to do with this is I do generally just use my bust, waist and hip measurements to choose the pattern size. I haven't got a very big bust, I'm quite small busted in fact, so I can use my bust measurement because I am about a B cup and that's what most of the patterns are drafted for. If I had a larger bust, I would definitely take the measurement of my chest to choose the size on the top, because I could then make a full bust adjustment to fit the bust. But what I would find then is that by taking that high bust measurement, the armholes and the neck would fit, and then I could fit the bust with the full bust adjustment. But because I'm small busted and generally the fit in that area is okay, sometimes it's a bit big and I have to make adjustments, I do tend to just go off my bust, waist and hips. And I often grade between sizes, so I'm often a smaller size on the top and then I grade out at the waist and hips because I'm a pear shape. I've also got some common adjustments that I just know from experience and from trial and error that I always have to make, so I just sort of check those areas as well, so I know what my problem areas are. I know that sometimes patterns can be, not the big four, but indie patterns can be a little bit short here on me, so they've sort of finished here rather than on the end of my shoulder there. So sometimes I'll check the pattern piece against my body and then think, right, I've got to take the seam allowance off that. So looking where that is it in the right place? Do I need to make any adjustments there? The other thing I often find is that bust darts are often too low for me because I'm small busted, so I often try the pattern piece against my body again, make sure the centre front's in the right place, make sure the shoulder seams are in the right place, and have a look, do I need to raise those bust darts at all? So I just look out for some of those things. If I'm really worried about the fit, if it's something that's going to take me a lot of time to make, or I know would be difficult to alter if there's lots and lots of pattern pieces, then I will make up a quick toile. I just use a bit of calico or a similar weight fabric that I've got in my stash perhaps, left over from a previous project, and I'll just make the bare bones of it and just check the fit and check those things are okay. And as I've already said, I often use the tissue and just do a bit of a tissue fit as well, just to make sure everything's okay. And then I can refer to the body measurements as well. That is a good tip to do that, to cut it out based on your body measurements. But then the finished garment measurements, just have a look at what those are and just see if you're happy with that amount of ease. So if it's 40 inches round the hips, you could get a tape measure and just hold it at 40 inches round your hips, and you'll see, well, that's how much bigger the garment's going to be than my hips. So I think you can refer to that as well. So there isn't really any hard and fast rules for me. I do go off my body measurements on the chart. I do usually grade between sizes, and I have some standard adjustments I make for my back and shoulders that I've just learned over the years I always need. But then, you know, whether I make a toile, it will vary between projects. Whether I tissue fit, that will vary between projects. But what I would say to everybody is, you know, the only way you learn is by just trying, just trial and error, being prepared to make mistakes and accepting that actually mistakes are a great way to learn, because you do kick yourself and it is frustrating. But then once you've made a really bad mistake, or you've really, you know, messed something up, it's highly unlikely you'll ever make that mistake again. And that knowledge just gets added to your bank of sewing knowledge, which you build on every time you try something new. So I think that's the thing that holds most people back, and it has held me back in the past, when you're just so paralysed by making a mistake or getting something wrong, you know, you almost don't get on with it. And I would just say, just have a go, just try, you know, and be prepared to make mistakes and learn from them. Michael Grace Watts asked, he said, I have an overlocker and wonder whether I can do the double line of stitching as well as finish the inside of the garment with my overlocker, or do I need to use the blind stitch method? So with regards to this, Michael, the double line of stitching that you're referring to, you can do that with what's called a cover stitch machine, and that is that lovely twin, it's called a twin needle sort of hem, I suppose it's sometimes referred to as well. So you can buy a cover stitch machine to do that, or you can get a machine that's a combined cover stitch and overlocker to do that, and you can switch between overlocking and cover stitching. But also, if you know, aren't able to afford to buy a cover stitch machine or a dual purpose machine, the other thing you can do is you can use a twin needle on your sewing machine to create that look. It's never as I personally don't think it's ever as successful as using a proper cover stitch, just because it's very difficult to get the tension right, and sometimes you do get something called tunnelling, where the fabric raises between the two lines of stitching. There's lots of things you can do to negate that, but yeah, that in answer to your question, you can't use a straightforward overlocker to do that twin line of stitching. You do need either a cover stitch machine, a dual purpose cover lock machine which does cover stitching and overlocking, or you can use a twin needle. And I did do an article on our blog all about sewing with the twin needle, so I'll try and remember to pop that link below for you, Michael. Then Sandy Stidwell Will asked for in-depth info on different types of interfacing and preparation for use. And somebody else, Jackie Penny, I think maybe, asked about interfacing. There's definitely somebody else asked about interfacing anyway. I mean, I think, Sandy, an in-depth discussion about interfacings would be a video in itself, so I can't go into all of that today, but I definitely can give you some headlines, a bit of an overview, and I can refer to you again to another blog article that I wrote all about this subject, and I did a table, I did a reference chart where you could look at the different types of interfacing we stock and what you could use them for. They're all available on our website, and as I said at the start of the video, you find the links to our website below, so I'll pop that blog article below for you so you can get that in-depth look. But as an overview, what I would say is I've been sewing for 5 years. I've made everything from simple t-shirts in stretch fabric to a pair of jeans. You know, I've made lots and lots of different things, tailored shirts, skirts, you know, all sorts of different projects. And I've only really ever used a couple of types of interfacing. So the most common ones that I use are an iron-on lightweight interfacing, and I use an iron-on stretch interfacing. And I'll try and pop links to both of those below. So if I'm using a stretch fabric, I use the stretch one. And then most of the dressmaking fabrics I use, the lightweight iron-on interfacing is suitable. So you always want to go for an interfacing that's a similar weight to the fabric you're using. If I've used denim, for example, I would use a slightly heavier weight interfacing. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that if you are just dressmaking and working with, you know, sort of more standard dressmaking fabrics, you're really not going to need to use lots and lots of different types of interfacing. If you get into tailoring and you're making tailored things like jackets and coats, you might want to use some and more specialised products, and all of those are detailed in the article I mentioned, so I will pop the link to that below. But I think you can sometimes overthink these things a little bit. The most important thing is just to make sure if it's a stretch fabric, use a stretch interfacing. If it's a woven fabric, use your standard interfacing, your non-stretch interfacing. I prefer fusible than sewing. You can use sewing as well, that's just down to personal preference, but I much prefer just ironing it on at the start of the project. And really, you know, think about the task at hand. You know, think about what you're going to be using it for, what effect you want to create, how much stiffness you want to give the fabric. And what I would always suggest, as with everything in sewing, is just always test on scraps of fabric first. So, you know, just get a little bit of your fabric, iron the interfacing on, and test, do you think that's going to give it enough weight? Do you think that's going to give it enough structure? If so, great. If not, try another one. But I will put a link, as I said, to the in-depth article below, which will give you a lot more detail on that. But I hope just that general overview and that sort of, you know, sense of, really, in my experience, there isn't a need to use lots and lots of different types. Most dressmaking projects you can just use, you know, a few different types and you'll be fine with that. Then Jackie Penny asked, when and how do you prepare your autumn winter makes? Helen Nesfield also asked, do you choose a pattern first, then go in search of material to make the said pattern, or do you build up a stash of material you just love and worry about what to do with it later? And then Alison Smith asked, how do you avoid being attracted to all the lovely fabrics and then find you have nothing in your wardrobe that actually goes together? Do you consciously pick things out to make a capsule wardrobe? And then Hannah Ralphs also asked where I get my inspiration for my makes from. Do I see a fabric I love and think of something I'd like to make, or do I get an idea of a garment in my head and then search out the right fabric and pattern? So I've lumped those together because I think they're all on a very similar theme, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I feel like I've developed my approach to this quite a bit over the last 5 years. So I used to get a fabric in at work and think, oh my god, I love it, I've got to make something out of that. And then I would come up with the idea in my head of what that fabric would be suitable for and make it. And quite often what that would mean is I'd end up with a lovely dress or, you know, skirt or something, but it really, more often than not, was something I probably wouldn't wear very often. And then once I'd sort of learned lots of different skills and kind of been sewing for a bit longer, and realised that even though I kept sewing and sewing, I wasn't really wearing that many handmade items, I sort of reflected and decided to approach things a bit differently. And what I do now is when I go to my wardrobe, we all have those moments when you're going somewhere or you're doing something and you go to your wardrobe and you think, I've never got enough t-shirts, or I've never got enough jogging bottoms, or I've never got enough casual day dresses. And what I do now when I pick my projects is I think of what instances of that I've had recently, what the gaps are in my wardrobe, and then I go away and I have a bit of a Google. I go on some of my favourite shops online and I have a look at what things are in fashion now and what things are available in the shops. I get some inspiration there, decide what kind of look I want to go for, and then I look at our website and I go through our patterns and I go through our fabrics and pair those together to create that look. And that really helps me it's really helped me to create a really wearable handmade wardrobe and lots of things that do go together and do work for my lifestyle. And what I've learned as well is that might mean sometimes I'm making something that really feels quite boring, or I never feel bored making it. I know I've had some comments before on the vlog that sometimes people find it boring if I share a basic t-shirt pattern, but ultimately what's not boring for me is wearing something that I've made as much as I possibly can. And I've got to the point now where most days a week I will be wearing something handmade, and that feels great, you know. And actually those basics that I need to wear day to day, okay, it's not the most exciting thing I've ever made, but if I'm wearing them all the time, I feel great about that and I get so much enjoyment from it. So I don't shy away from doing that. But what I do, because I think it would get a bit boring if I just made non-stop, you know, wardrobe basics, I think I would get a bit bored of sewing then. What I tend to do is just mix it up a bit. So I will think, you know, oh, I've made a couple of basic t-shirts now, I'm going to make a nice tailored shirt and get my teeth into something a bit different. Or, you know, I made a pair of jeans earlier this year, which was a wonderful, thoroughly enjoyable project. So I do try and mix it up a bit, but definitely the starting point is always, what's that thing I'm going to get out of my wardrobe and I've never got enough of? Right, that's what I need to make. That's what I need to make because that's what I'm going to wear and that's what I'll get the most enjoyment out of long term. So I can't quite believe it, but I've just checked the clock and I've been talking for 20 minutes. I don't know how that happened. I was hoping to get through loads more questions in this video. But as I said, thank you so much for participating, everybody. I'm going to come back to the rest of the questions, and you know, it might not be for a few weeks because I like to try and keep things fresh on the vlog, and I'll be sharing makes and new patterns and things like that before then. But I will come back to them and I will do a bit of a series of these Q&As because it's been thoroughly enjoyable for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed it too, and yeah, thanks for taking part. Don't forget, everything I talked about today is available on our website, and there's also some handy blog articles below that you can refer to as well. And if you like what you see today, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.